Welcome to episode 30 of From the Shed End podcast with myself, as always, T-Dot, and I'm always joined by Theo. So how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. For those watching on YouTube, you can see that it's a new background. So I finally moved into my new flat, which I'm happy about. Settled in over the weekend, so I'm doing good. How about you?
Yeah, not bad. Usual, busy, usual stuff going on. Kids running around normally. So yeah, I enjoy these sort of short breaks of not having to be a dad and just being able to talk football for the best part half an hour to an hour every week. So yeah, brilliant. So as always, anyone who's listening, as always, you can find us on any sort of streaming platform, Apple, Spotify. You can search for us From the Shed End. Listen to our previous episodes and also today's episode as well while we're recording. You can watch that live on YouTube as well. So we're on From the Shed End on YouTube as well. If you just give us a search on Google or on YouTube, you should find us. On Instagram, it's slightly different. We're at From the Shed End with underscores between each of the words. So again, I think one of our posts hit over 4,000 likes over the weekend. Marvelous Mendy, which we'll get onto later. But yeah, give us a like on there. Follow our content. I know Theo does a lot of work on there. So yeah, subscribe to YouTube and all of that stuff as well. So let's get into Brentford Saturday. I can't remember what we predicted. I'm trying to think what we said.
I think you said 2-1, and I said
2-1.
2. I said 2-2. I think I was quite
No,
scared
it
before
was
kickoff.
well off the mark.
Yeah.
But it was a good. I mean, it was a good game nonetheless. It was still a good game. There's still cracks in there for me. But let's get your thoughts first. What did you think about what I thought was a very good Brentford side? What did you think?
Well, firstly, I was very close to getting a ticket for that game. It proved quite difficult to get hold of one, but I'm actually glad I was watching it on my laptop and not in the stadium, because my heart would have struggled with that game, especially that last 20 minutes of that second half. My God. But no, it was a very good defense. We were set out very well defensively, I felt. And credit to Brentford. I felt in the first half, I thought we'd wrap the game up quite comfortably. In the second half, watching that first 45 minutes, they couldn't really get the ball much. I think they might have just had one shot, being that when Mbumo hit the post. But in that second half, Thomas Frank must have had an amazing team talk at half time, because they looked like a completely new team. And it's almost as if the roles were reversed and Chelsea were unable to get hold of the ball. They just didn't really allow us to play our football in that second half. And it was a really, really tough watch as a Chelsea fan. The countless, attacks in our penalty box, having to like boot it away. And it felt like pinball at times. As soon as we'd clear it, they'd be back in. And it was uncomfortable to watch. But yeah, Mendy was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I think a couple episodes ago, I was a bit critical about his distribution. And that's just me as a Chelsea fan wanting him to almost be, the best goalkeeper in the world, which I still think he is based on form. But if he really wants to cement that position as the best goalkeeper in the world, which we saw in that game against Brentford, I don't think any other keeper is making all those saves that he did. Not a single keeper out there can make every single one of those saves that he did. Even the Alissons, Neuers, Edersons, I think they're conceding one of those shots at least. But if he works on his distribution, which I still think we saw a couple of times in that Brentford game, him clearing it and it just reaching a Brentford midfielder. But that's just me being very critical, because I want him to be really, really good. But no, overall, really good 3 points away to Brentford. We saw that they're a tricky side to face with the results that they got against Liverpool and Arsenal at their stadium. So I think to come out with a 1-0 win, a clean sheet, and a very tricky referee as well, which we didn't speak about, which in the end...
I thought he'd done well. I thought he'd done
okay.
okay.
He did well. Yeah, I think I was actually quite pleasantly surprised, and it almost feels like it's going to be some kind of end of the world, clean sheet and Anthony Taylor as referee. For Chelsea fans, it feels like it's hard to comprehend. But no, really, really good 3 points.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think based on the changes that were sort of forced on Tuchel in terms of Rudiger not being fully fit, Malang Sarr coming in and having his debut as well, which I thought he played brilliant. Ruben Loftus-Cheek getting another start as well. It was always going to be difficult, I think, going to Brentford, because we've already seen what they can do to big teams such as Liverpool, and also again our opening game of the season against Arsenal. So I think it was always going to be a difficult game. You mentioned Mbumo as well. I think he was more instrumental in Brentford's attack than maybe an Ivan Toney, who I expected a little bit more from in that game. But I thought we'd done really well, and I was really impressed with Loftus-Cheek first half especially. I thought he was arguably man of the match for me, if there wasn't Mendy on the pitch, I think he played really well. But yeah, I think one thing that does, and I've mentioned it on here before, one thing that does worry me is the fact that we're top of the league. I'm happy about that. I think we've conceded 3 goals, scored 16. Is it 19 points we're on now? I think
I think I'm not too sure.
something like that.
Yeah.
But we're still not playing good football.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds. I was talking to on a separate podcast on Sunday, and I was almost getting not ridiculed, but I was almost I should be happy that I'm sort of we're top of the league, which I am, and I'm not sort of. But I watch Liverpool and I watch the way they play, albeit against a Watford side or whoever, but they just look a better team than we do. We're top of the league, which I'm grateful for, but I just look at the likes of Liverpool, how they play. They look more solid, and something still isn't clicking for me. We're sort of relying on, I think, with 17 goal scorers we've had or something this season already. Something just isn't clicking, and I don't know whether it's. I'm assuming it's obviously something that we're not getting the best out of Lukaku, which I'm sure we've mentioned on here before. But relying on Ben Chilwell sounds bad, but a Ben Chilwell goal in a game like that, I expected a bit more from Lukaku, and maybe give Kai Havertz a chance. He hasn't really had a real consistent run of games to prove what he can actually do for the squad as well. Ziyech missing, Pulisic missing as well. It just seems like something isn't really clicking with the squad at the moment.
Yeah, I'd have to agree when you mention, Liverpool, based on the football that they're playing, it is more, they are playing better than us. Yes, they're playing Watford, who are arguably a weaker opposition than Brentford. And we saw the result that they got against Brentford. They conceded 3 and got a draw. But I still have to agree, something's just not clicking, especially when you compared it to maybe our opening 4 games of the season. The Palace win, the Arsenal away win, the first half of that Liverpool game before the sending off, and maybe the Villa game at home. Those 3 games, I thought, 3 or 4 games, we were playing our football. This is the football that we'll play under Tuchel. But kind of since then, it's almost something's not right. And I don't know if it's because Lukaku's not scoring or getting the service he was getting compared to those 4 games, or if, the midfielders just aren't really contributing to attacks. But I don't know. But I feel like once we get Loftus-Cheek, fully into these games, which he is now, I think, and we get maybe a player like Reece James back, who got injured in that first half of the City game, who I still think is probably one of our most creative players alongside Mount, based on his delivery and Lukaku's aerial ability. I think then maybe we'll start seeing some goals from our forwards. But yeah, I think the Malmo game, the Norwich game, and I think Southampton in a cup are hopefully games where we should be rotating a little. I want to say maybe giving Lukaku a rest. He's been playing a lot of football. He probably playing that Brentford game, still carrying an injury from international break, so it might not have been ideal for him. Mm-hmm. But I think just the one thing I want to say about Lukaku is just, he's not getting the service he wants, but is that an excuse at times? You want to see your forward contributing to defensive plays. You want to see him fighting for balls. You want to see him creating chances for himself. So that's another thing I want to say. And, it's only about a matter of time, if this goal draft goes on, that we'll start to think, can Lukaku be doing more himself to getting these goals rather than, relying on other players? But I think, a couple of rotations in the next couple of games, maybe give him a rest and bring him back in for Saturday against Norwich. And I really expect him to get a goal in that game, because they're arguably, no disrespect to them, but the weakest side in the Premier League at the moment. So,
yeah. What did you take on Malang Sarr, who I thought played, again, debutant, and I thought he had a really good game, again, in a very sort of inexperienced, again, Christensen, who I feel is an unsung hero. He doesn't necessarily get the praise that he should, just going about his business. But what did you think about Malang Sarr, who came into a game which could potentially have been a lot more difficult against Brentford?
Slightly worried, if I'm honest, when I first saw his name on the team sheet. First Premier League game away to Brentford was not going to be an easy one. I think the only times we saw him in a Chelsea shirt were in the Tottenham friendly at Stamford Bridge, where he was arguably at fault for 1 or 2 of the goals that Tottenham scored. And we saw him in the cup against Villa, where he got a yellow quite early on, and then it was a bit shaky from there. But I thought he was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. He looked cool, he looked calm, he looked collective, and he at times when he was making all these interceptions and clearing the ball in the penalty box, moving without my glasses, I was thinking, it's like Kante, honestly, because that's how good he
'Cause
was.
he's
Yeah.
not the tallest, is he? He's
No,
not the
he's not.
tallest
He's
as well.
not, and
Yeah.
he's kind of same physique and as Kante as well. So I thought he was fantastic, and I think he made a lot of Chelsea fans, regret what they said before kickoff, because on Twitter a lot of Chelsea fans were saying, "Oh, we're going to lose," definitely Sar's getting sent off, etc., etc. So I thought he was fantastic, but it also shows how important of a player Christensen is, because arguably the most experienced and mature of those three centre backs, and he just looked completely in his place in between the two, and that's without an experienced Silva or Rudiger alongside him. So I thought he was absolutely fantastic, and now that we consider Christensen one of those experienced centre backs, just goes to show how much he's achieved over the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's only, credit to himself, because I think I remember watching the game. Might have been against Liverpool a few seasons ago now, and he was brilliant then as well. And I think obviously he's gone on to do a lot more, and played really well against in the Euros as well. So it's only credit to himself. But even Chaloba as well, I thought played
Yeah.
really well as well. Having those three at the back, missing Silva, Rudiger, who again, I'm sure would have played. I think he came back the day of the game, I think. So
Mm.
he wouldn't have been able to play. But I just think not having those in there, but having someone like Christensen definitely helped the two. I think, like you mentioned at the opening of the points we made about Brentford, it did show the sort of lack of the inexperience. Maybe the last 20, 15 minutes of the game, it was, all hands on deck, and it was literally just literally an assault on Chelsea all the time. Literally just, we couldn't get the ball out of our half. And I think bringing on Reece James, I think I mentioned during the game, that needed to happen 10
Mm.
minutes before, because I think you do need to sometimes switch it up at the back. And I think Reece James coming on, he's got the experience to do that as well. So, but not to take away from Chilwell. I know I mentioned,
Mm.
relying on Chilwell goals. He got one in internationals. I think before that, he got the goal before the internationals as well. So to have someone who can do that, we spoke about how good Marcus Alonso has been this season, but now the tables have turned, because now we're talking about Ben Chilwell, who's kind of keeping Marcus Alonso out the squad. So. That's, again, I always say on here, that's a brilliant headache to have, I think, as a manager. You've got two arguably very decent, left-sided players that can play in the same position as well.
Yeah, definitely. Ben Chilwell, 3 goals in his last 3 games. It would almost seem foolish not to start him in that game, even though Marcus Alonso was on form with the Nations League games for Spain. But that finish was superb from Chilwell. It's almost
Yeah.
identical to the volleyed finish he scored against Southampton. With a left foot, or maybe it's the right foot against Southampton, but almost the type of finish you'd expect from Alonso, on the volley. So you have to have left wing backs who can also score goals and contribute to goals. It's a fantastic, asset to the team. And as you said, a brilliant headache for Tuchel, two informed left wing backs. So I think in the next, I think we've got a game every weekend now and a game in midweek for the next couple of weeks. So definitely, I'm expecting the two of them to get rotated quite often between for those next 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, definitely. And just as we sort of move on, we're going to talk about Mendy, but obviously the news I think broke, if not late last night or yesterday, around Mason Mount's contract. Hopefully, new contract. I think his current contract expires 2024. I think so. This would obviously be the extension to that. Also, doubling of his wages, which currently is, I think, around 75,000 a week. So, arguably, kind of makes sense to do that. He's probably been the best player for Chelsea, Ballon d'Or nominated. Makes sense.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. I mean, again, when you look at Chelsea's, wages, 75,000 a week is relatively low compared to some other players. So when you look at how much he contributes to the team and how important he is, and you realise that when he's not playing, we see how much he gives in terms of creativity and even contributes to goals. But I think he should be well deserving at least double what he's currently earning, 75,000. So if we can tie him down to a 5-year contract, that would be fantastic. And I think I expect him to eventually be future captain of the side as well.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that 100%. And obviously, we seem to talk about Rudiger quite a bit on here, not just in terms of contractual talks, but in terms of his performance. But is he really worth a £400,000 a week contract? I'd have to say no.
No.
I don't think he is. I think we've got enough in there. I think you mentioned as well around Kunde. If we can go back in for him, if not in the next window, which I doubt, but if we got him in the next summer window, 180,000, 200,000 as at a push, is half of what Rudiger's asking for. So, do you think that would be the sort of more viable option to go for Kunde and allow Rudiger to leave?
Yeah, it's just getting frustrating now. £400,000 a week is ridiculous money, especially for a centre back. I mean, as good as he is, I would not be paying him that much. And I'm seeing a lot of Chelsea fans on Twitter agreeing that that's too much money. And if that's what he's requiring to stay at a club that he wants to play for, then clearly that's not you're not wanting to stay at Chelsea if you're demanding such ridiculous wages. So I think it might be sensible-ish come January, if he still hasn't agreed on a contract that's lower than £400,000 a week, to look at options like Koundé. I think Delete as well is a fantastic centre back at Juventus. And Juventus are almost going through this transition period where players maybe might want to consider their future there. If they're not part of the long-term project, where they don't really see themselves, winning trophies at the club anymore. So I think he's a fantastic player to also consider. But yeah, I think centre back, should Rudiger leave, it's definitely a role that we should be looking to fill, and especially if we're able to pay someone less than £400,000 a week.
It's got to be done. I agree with you. I don't think it's. I just can't justify for. I mean, I said the same on a separate podcast around Jack Grealish for 325,000. I just don't see enough of what those type of players are doing to earn that sort of money. Mo Salah, I think, is due to get half a million a week contract, which is kind of been floated around on the table. I understand that because of what he's done over the last 3 or 4 seasons and what he's doing at the moment as well for Liverpool. But to see Rudiger, who yes is playing brilliantly at the moment, he's in form, but then I look at a Metso Ozil, who how it ended obviously was a bit bad, but in terms of when he was on, well, I'll use Patrick Aubameyang actually is even better example, who signed a contract for big wages and did nothing for Arsenal for 6-7 months, albeit he scored yesterday. But you get my point. He doesn't do it enough, and I think Rudiger could be in that bracket where he might give us 5 games, which is 400 grand's worth of that type of player, but he's not doing it consistently all season, and I think that's. He's not a world-class centre-back for me. He's not that level of centre-back. And for a world-class centre-back, I would pay 400,000 a week because they're indispensable. You can't just go and get another one. So
I'd like to hear Paul Scholes' view on whether Rudiger should get a £400,000 contract based on what he said about Chelsea's defence recently.
yeah, it's a good point. But let's keep it with the defence, but move to the goalkeeper. We spoke about Mendy many a times on here before. How has Mendy not been nominated for a Ballon d'Or? This is actually, it was only up until I know we spoke about it before, but just thinking about it, even looking at the Brentford game, how is he not even in contention for the Ballon d'Or? I'm not sure which goalkeepers are. I'm going to say Donnarumma must be in there.
He's the only one. He's the only goalkeeper that's been nominated. But the fact the goalkeeper has been nominated means that they're able to be nominated, which makes it even more stupid that Edouard Mendy's not on that list.
Yeah.
And I'm
just in shock.
Yeah, a player like Gerard Moreno from Villarreal is on that list, but Edouard Mendy's not. It's like, it's shocking. It's shocking.
I think even going back to last season, Champions League, I think maybe it was 4 goals conceded or in the whole campaign of the Champions League. I'm sure it was below 5. I can probably put my house on that. That it was below 5 goals that we think we conceded. And just it's not just the clean sheet; it's what he does for the team as well. And I think without him, we definitely wouldn't have won the Champions League. I can easily say that we wouldn't have won. We wouldn't have got top 4 last season. So I just look at, and a lot of people are fixed on stats, and I'm not really a stats guy. I'm not. I look at them, but I like to just physically watch a player and see what he can do. Arguably, Mendy's got to be in that bracket of we talk about Edison, Alisson from Liverpool as well. Donnarumma, we might put him in there as well. Courtois, maybe on his day, is a he's a good goalkeeper still. but Mendy just doesn't get spoken about, and the fact he's not got a Ballon d'Or nomination. Not to say he's got to win it, but I think to be at least recognised for the work he does for Chelsea, for me, it's shocking.
It is, yeah. I mean, I think he was very humble in what he said, kind of saying, "I'm still very honoured to be nominated in the top 10 best goalkeepers in the world for the, I think it's the Yashin Trophy." But I mean, you just said you don't really look into stats. I don't either. I rather watch the game and look at what I see on the pitch rather than base it on stats. But if you want to look at stats, I think this season, taking away penalties, he saved 96% of the shots he's faced. I think he's only
I mean,
conceded
come
one
on.
goal from open play, which was the one against Man City in the Premier League. And then I think another stat was we've won our last 7 away London derbies.
Yeah.
And I think Mendy's played in about 6 of those 7, and we only conceded 1 goal in those 7 games. So
If that doesn't get you at least around the table of the discussion for a Ballon d'Or, I don't know what does, because
yeah.
you know.
I mean, Donnarumma, fantastic goalkeeper. Don't get me wrong, but he spent the first 6 months of the year at AC Milan, who kind of had a better end of 2020 than 2021, and they kind of let Inter win the Serie A, and then fantastic Euros. But then again, Mendy, he won the Champions League. He's playing really well for Senegal when on international duty. He started the season really well, whereas Donnarumma's kind of still switching around with Navas for that number 1 jersey. So I don't know. It's annoying, but I'm kind of, because I play goalkeeper for my 5-a-side. I know, like, I would love, regardless of who the goalkeeper is, to see a goalkeeper one day win the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
So I mean, it would be really special, especially if it's a Chelsea goalkeeper. And if you base it on form at the moment, there's no keeper that's more informed than Edouard Mendy. So I'm shocked.
Yeah, I think. I mean, he's still relatively young for a goalkeeper, and I think as long as he keeps his consistency up, I can't see that they can still ignore it. I think he's arguably going to, for me at the moment, he's world class. So I know not everyone agrees with that statement, but if he carries on the form that he's got and develops his game even more, there's only so long that I think those kind of governing bodies and can ignore him. I think he's just too good of a goalkeeper to be ignored and not be mentioned as one of the great and one of the world class goalkeepers that we've got in Europe at the moment, if not the world. So yeah, as long as he keeps doing that. Oh, and I was like you, I was very critical, which I have been, of both Kepa and Mendy at times. But I think at the moment he shows you why he should be in goal. But then Kepa does that as well. Sometimes, you see Kepa play. It's a very good headache for Tuchel to have. I think, having 2 good goalkeepers, it's not a bad thing. It's Ben Sinelli's not going to get a look in if both of them are doing that. But, it's a good headache to have.
Yeah, I mean, as good as Kepa is, January African Cup of Nations, we'll be letting Mendy join up with the Senegalese squad for a month, I think, which is, I don't want to say worrying, because I think January you get a few. Maybe it is, but I think you get a few FA Cup games, opening round FA Cup games, and I need to look at a list of fixtures. But yeah, you'd want Mendy during that period. So it is going to be quite an interesting time, and I think having Bettinelli on the bench in that period as well, who's never even played a Chelsea game. If he does come on, should there be a Kepa injury or something, you're looking back at the Ross Turnbull days, or something like that, which is a bit worrying as well.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, we talk about Kepa, and I think I do. I still think of Kepa as that sort of young goalkeeper that came, and I know I've spoke about him on here, that he's obviously matured a lot as a person as well as a goalkeeper. And I think, I hope Senegal get knocked out early. Let's be honest. We want them out the first game. The first opportunity they can get knocked out, we want them knocked out so we can get Mendy back, as a selfish point of view from Chelsea. But no, I think Kepa's got enough about him. I think he'll do just as good as a job, to be fair. But you did mention Kepa, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Kepa tomorrow night. Chelsea versus Malmo. Champions League is back. I was reading earlier, I think there is going to be some changes. I think maybe Sal Niguez might come back in. Silva, who hasn't really featured, I'm trying to think of his last game, but obviously he didn't play against Brentford because he couldn't. Kai Havertz, I think Lukaku to be rested. I think those are the kind of key changes which have been spoken about so far. But I think Malmo haven't won a game so far if memory serves me correct, I don't think they've won any of their Champions League, the two Champions League games they've played. I think they've conceded 7 goals. There's 0 points. Surely this is a game which we dominate and we win.
Yeah, I mean, it's we lost that game to Juventus, away to Juventus, and now we've got Malmo home and then Malmo away. It's our next two Champions League fixtures. I think nothing but 6 points in those two games. You know, they're arguably the weakest opposition in the group. I kind of games that you'd expect to rotate. I would like to see Kepa start tomorrow, but at the same time, it's very hard to drop a really informed Mendy after the performance he played at the Brentford Community Stadium on Saturday. So that's a bit of another headache for Tuchel. But Saunagaz, I think, should be starting this game. If he doesn't start this game, you'd wonder if he'll ever even get a start for Chelsea other than Carabao Cup games. Havertz, I wouldn't mind seeing Havertz as a lone striker. If he drops Loftus-Cheek, it's an indication that maybe he really values him and wants to play him in the Premier League games, which is also a good sign, I suppose. But I think Silva will come back in if he's finished his. I think the isolation, how it works now, is you're allowed to go to training and to play matches, but you still have to stay at home in between.
Yeah, I noticed Yerry Mina was doing that for Everton.
Yeah.
He couldn't sit on the subs bench. He was sitting away from the subs. And I think West Ham had to come out of a separate tunnel. They could use a separate, they couldn't even come out together. But, you know, if Silva comes on, it kind of defeats the whole object because he'll be mixing with the players on the pitch. But yeah.
I guess it was like that even during that restart period after the whole lockdown back in June 2020.
Yeah.
Like they were shaking hands, but on corners they were like, you know, shoving elbows and hands all over I don't know. But yeah, I think the back line will be a bit different. I think Rudiger's back now. I think Ziyech will start, you know, if he's recovered from his headache. But yeah, there'll be lots of changes. I think going back on memory, we played them last, I think, in the Europa League when we back in the Sarri days. I think it was 2-1 win, 2-1 win away and a 3-0 win at Stamford Bridge. I think Barkley scored a free kick in that, if I remember.
It's a good shout for him to start again as well. Yeah. I think he's another name I'd like to see. If we do drop Loftus-Cheek, which it isn't actually a bad thing because, albeit Norwich are, you know, a team there for the taking, I think giving some minutes to someone like Barkley, like you mentioned, Havertz as well, who I think would be a good opportunity, not just to rest Lukaku, but to see what Havertz can potentially do as well. I think that'd be good. I think it'd be really good. And maybe even give Alonso some minutes, some game time as well, because, you know, Chil has played, you know, those sort of back-to-back Chelsea games with the international in between. And I think just giving Alonso a bit of game time, keeping them fresh as well. I think that's a key thing. You know, you don't want to sort of not play them and then they, you know, you need them at one point and they're just not up to the speed of the game. Yeah,
and our game on Saturday against Norwich is 12:30 kickoff. So a reason more to rest some players and rotate. But yeah, I'm expecting I want to say a win. I don't know. It's going to be one of those games where it completely depends how we start off. But I'd love like a 2-0 lead at halftime, and then it can be a comfortable second half. I don't want anything to be like the Zenit home game where we kind of left it a bit late to get that winner. But I think Zenit are arguably a better side than Malmo.
Yeah,
but no, I'm expecting a win.
They're top of their league, to be fair, but albeit in the sort
Swedish.
Their Swedish domestic league, but they are top. I think I looked this morning. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they've lost 5 games, won 13. They've got a kind of good consistency, but again, the level of football. No disrespect to anyone who's from Sweden who might tune in, but it's slightly lesser than I think in the Premier League. So I expect to win. I think regardless of what team we could put out. You know, some of the under 23s, I still expect us to put up a good performance. We're at home. You know, Stamford Bridge, Champions League nights are always special anyway. But I think, I can see Havertz starting. I think we'll rest Lukaku. I don't think he'll even come on unless we're losing, which shouldn't be happening. But I think Havertz will probably get a few goals. I think Mason Mount might play because I think he didn't really get much time against Brentford. I think it was maybe 20 minutes or so, if that. I can't really remember when he came on, but I think Mason Mount might get some time. He may even be in contention to start again on Saturday against Norwich. So again, you want to keep these players fresh. I know the games are coming thick and fast, but you still want them to be, you know, playing as much football as possible.
Yeah, perfect game for Reece James to come back in and get some minutes as well. I know he got about 10, 20 minutes against Brentford on Saturday, but, you know, perfect game for him to start. regain his match fitness, and then hopefully maybe be in line for to start again on Saturday. But one thing I think I mentioned on a previous episode is I think it's really good to see from Tuchel how I think end of the summer before the on deadline day, players like Barkley, Malang Sarr, and I think even Lewis Baker, who's still training with the squad,
Yeah,
they weren't even given shirt
shout.
numbers. They weren't even
Yeah,
given shirt numbers, and it was almost an indication that they're not in Tuchel's plans. Tuchel made it clear that he put them on almost a loan list. Told them to go search for a club and then be loaned out, and then they ended up not finding those clubs, and they've stayed. Any other manager that I think would have managed Chelsea would have just let them train with the reserve squad. Would have
yeah,
told them my plans now. Try to find another club in January, but for the next 5 months you're training with the reserve squad. Whereas Tuchel said no, they're part of the team now. They're going to play their role. And I think Sarr and Barkley, from what we've seen this season, when they have played, they've done the job. They've really done the job. And I think there's more of that to come in the coming months. Whether they go out on loan in January, I don't know. But I think it's a really credit to Tuchel for making the most out of the squad he's been given and giving every player a fair chance.
yeah. I think you're spot on. I think looking back at some previous scenarios where that's happened, where players have just not got the loan that they wanted and they've been isolated from the first team, he's almost gone in there and said, "Look, this is your opportunity to not just impress me as the gaffer, but other clubs that might want you in January." I think Burnley is still sniffing around Barkley, which I think the deal was almost nearly done in the summer as well. I think with Burnley, I think they were one of the teams that were mentioned. So it's almost putting them in the shop window, but also allowing Tuchel to assess them. Maybe he can see if they are. I mean, Barkley's definitely taking his chances. I could probably say the same about Malang Sarr if he was to play on Wednesday against Malmo as well. So yeah, it's a win-win. If as long as the team are winning, Tuchel's getting the best out of the team and resting his key players, by putting on a Barkley or a Malang Sarr, but it's also putting him in the shop window for January as well, which I think why not? Because yeah, there is going to be times where you might sit out games. Someone like a Barkley who's probably not even first contention. I think what's helped Barkley more so is Saul Niguez just hasn't been up to the pace of the league as well, and we've obviously had a few injuries in between that, but he's definitely taken his chances. And as painful as it is for me to say, to an extent, I think I'd like him to stay at the club. To be fair, I think he's been one of the ones which I've been trying to get out the door myself. I'll drive him back to Liverpool myself if I can, but no, he's definitely proven his worth. He's definitely chips in with goals, and he's a good footballer. I've never doubted that at all. It's just his off-field attitude at times as well, and it's just not. Sometimes you don't need that around the club. So yeah, if he starts tomorrow and scores, let's keep him.
Yeah, fantastic footballer. I just agree with you, a bit inconsistent and maybe a bit, I want to say, lazy sometimes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, if he stays, then you can only support him and wish him, hope he does well. And from what we've seen in his cameo appearances so far this season, he's really done the job. So I kind of hope he does stay, and at least for the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into the predictions for tomorrow. Malmo, yeah, go first. Let's hear your thoughts.
I'm going to Stamford Bridge tomorrow. I love a Champions League night at the Bridge, and even more so when we score lots of goals. So I'm going to say, I'm going to go for the same scoreline as when we played them in the Europa League at the Bridge. So I'm saying 3-0. I think
3-0.
if we scorers, I'm going to Havertz, Mount, and let's go for one of the. I'll go for Alonso, Mount, and Havertz.
That's good. I think I'm going to go 3-0 as well. I'm going to go 3-0. I think we'll score goals. I think you mentioned earlier maybe getting 2 goals in the first half. I can see that happening. I think if we attack like I know we can, and I think if we don't play Lukaku, I think we'll have that option to attack a bit more, which sounds weird, but if we've got a sort of that false 9, I think that's going to work really well. And yeah, I think 3-0. I can't see them scoring regardless of who's playing centre back for us or in our defence, regardless of whether it's Mendy or Kepa. It's at Stamford Bridge, and I expect us to keep a clean sheet. We've got a good record of doing that, especially in the Champions League. So yeah, 3-0. Scorers is going to be a difficult one because I do think Tuchel's going to do a bit of a pick and mix with the squad. So I think Havertz will definitely be on there if he starts and scores. He should get maybe 1 or 2. Jorginho. I don't know if Jorginho's fit. Maybe Jorginho penalty. Not sure, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's going to be interesting.
we've got to say Barkley after what we've just said as well.
Yeah,
I think that's
let's scrap Jorginho. Let's put Barkley in there. Maybe 4-0. Jorginho gets a 88th minute penalty and scores that as well. So it's going to be a good game regardless. And obviously we've got Norwich to look forward to as well, which we'll do a review on in our next episode. But yeah, interesting game. I forgot you was going to the game as well, so that'd be even better for you as well.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Nothing better than a Champions League game at the Bridge.
Yeah, yeah. You got any tickets for Norwich?
Norwich, Southampton, and the
There you
Cup
go.
next week. Then I managed to get 5 tickets for the Chelsea Juventus game. Got
Yeah,
tickets for Chelsea Man U, so I'm set for the next month.
yeah. You go. You're busy guy, busy guy. Hopefully you'll still be joining us on the pod every
I
week.
will. I will.
But yeah, as I mentioned at the start of the episode, you can definitely follow us as well on at From the Shed End on Twitter. If you search for us on YouTube, it's the same, From the Shed End podcast, and on Instagram it's at From the Shed End with underscores between each of the words. So give us a like, subscribe, comment, definitely interact with us. Let us know your thoughts as well. And as I mentioned before, we'll have the Norwich game, which is our next game. Hopefully we can get 3 points at that fixture as well. That'll be episode 31. But this has been episode 30. Theo, as always, thank you for joining me. Always a pleasure. And I know you do a lot of work on the socials as well. So appreciate all of that. But yeah, this has been episode 30 from the Shed End podcast with myself, T. Dot, and Theo. Thank you for listening.